All right, welcome to the Immortal Accords first podcast. We're here today with my two friends, Regina and Jordy. They have dropped by to, figure out what this project's about and like how I got started and why I got into music. So,
yeah, guys, thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Yes. Also, before we start, this has been funded by our sponsor, which is Backwater Studios in Binbrook, Ontario. That is where all of my material is currently being recorded and produced. Okay, moving on. So, how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, not too bad.
It's been quite the day so far. Happy I get to do this with you right now. Interested to hear about Immortal Accord.
Yeah, sounds pretty cool, man.
Awesome. So, the project started, and it's a sci-fi driven industrial sounding band. And my first inspiration was most likely Tool. I started listening to them in about grade 8, and I was lucky enough to see them live for the first time in grade 9. That was my first concert, actually. But what really got me passionate about Tool was they were very different compared to anything that I'd heard at that point in my life. And it was like a musical journey. And it resonated even more once I got to see them in concert, because the fan base was all so excited to be there, but also just like so involved in the music. And it was just this kind of community that I hadn't known existed before. So that was really eye-opening, and that was kind of how I got my feet wet and wanted to do music.
Yeah, I can see that. I think what a lot of people really like about Tool is that, the sense of otherness, where it's kind of a spiritual experience in a way. I guess they had that one artist do, all their work, and it was very, mandala-esque and crazy spiritual.
Yeah.
So what is it about Tool that, inspired you to do music? Is it just, the industrial sound, or is it that, deeper meaning of consciousness behind it all? What are you trying to bring from Tool into Immortal Accord?
Well, from Tool, I wouldn't necessarily say they have an industrial sound. It's more of a progressive hard rock / metal, but it's more so how they delivered the music and how they really hit home, and they were not afraid to experiment and do things that weren't in the norm, and also just, create something that was pure and not follow trends, essentially.
Yeah, well, it took them long enough to sign up for streaming services just in time, eh? for the downfall of concerts in a pandemic.
Yeah, it's one of the saddest things about the pandemic. So then I would say another very influential band that had an effect on where I ended up was Slipknot. And they were actually Ray's favorite band. And if you know Ray, he was obviously a huge influence growing up on me. So he actually showed me Tool as well, but then he got me into Slipknot, and he was really passionate about them. And at this point in time, they had just recently kind of broken their anonymous phase, but prior to that, they had worn masks. And they still wear masks for all their shows, but nobody really knew what they looked like off stage, right? So there was this kind of mystery to the band, and they had this theme of wearing masks, and they were all wearing jumpsuits, and they had this hard, angry, aggressive sound. And they didn't just have, guitars and drums and a bass and a vocalist, but they also have, samples and a mixer and other percussionists on stage. So they had all of these different elements. And again, it was really unique, and I haven't really seen many other people do that. And that was something that kind of grabbed my attention, and I wanted to maybe go in that kind of direction myself.
Nice. Yeah, I always appreciated the pageantry and the dedication that they had. Them and other acts too. Still, it's a big part of metal, and it's a big part of those scenes where you almost have to give up your identity or mask it in a certain way to truly express yourself. So I think it's a great
that's an
legacy.
Interesting concept too. Or for Immortal Accord, are you gonna have this anonymity? Are you gonna be sorry to bring it into EDM or something music, but Marshmello is one of those people who has not, or Daft Punk, for a long time nobody knew who they were too. Is that something you're considering doing for the project?
In terms of the project, I definitely would like to have a stage presence in a sense, to have that kind of, the costumes and the get-ups and the things that you would do directly correlate with the band visually. But in terms of being completely anonymous, no, people can know my name, they can know who I am and where I started. But when you see me on stage versus off stage, or in any kind of media that you might see me in, it's probably going to look like two different people.
Nice.
I think that's a cool idea. So to separate like the music from the person, to like have that be like a complete separate entity.
Yeah, and rather than just like being Taylor Murphy, like the artist, it just goes up on Spotify as Taylor Murphy, like Joe Ford or fucking, whoever. Some people are just, the electronic guy or like the one man band.
Can
and it's
you
just
swear?
Like,
Did you swear?
We can always
swear,
bleep it out. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Swearing's loud. It's not something to care about. We're all adults.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely think that it gives you a creative freedom, just like you were saying, Jordy, that when you put a mask on, right, you don't have to fit a certain image that you might want to normally maintain in a member of society, right? But when you're a character and you're wearing a mask or makeup or a costume, you can really just be whatever it is that you're trying to be in that moment and portray an emotion or a scene or a character.
Yeah, I agree. That's like a lot of alternative metal or like industrial or progressive rock. They kind of play the long game in that way, where it's not just about making the money. It's about creating the community and making music to make good music. And I think that's missing from a lot of like new artists who are doing it for the fame or the money or the likes. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I'd say that resonates with me quite a bit. The biggest reason as to why I got into music was because, for me personally, music has always been a form of therapy almost. And it's there in the good times and the bad times and everything in between, and it enhances life and it allows you to feel connected to people, especially in situations where you may be, not in a situation where you can communicate well or you can deal with emotions that you're having, right? So I found that music is a very important way to compensate and get through life in a healthy manner. So that kind of leads me into the third most influential band and probably my favorite band of all time, which is Nine Inch Nails. And that is kind of where more so the industrial vibes of my sound kind of developed and where that came from. But it's also mostly because Trent Reznor and all of his music was really passionate, right? And each album kind of highlights a different period of his life where, if you look at his first few records, like, Pretty Hate Machine and Downward Spiral, where he was just starting out and then kind of really starting to delve into drugs and struggle with that, and his music got darker and more depressed and angrier. And then right around the time of The Fragile, he was like at the breaking point where a lot of artists may not make it through. Like, they may suffer from suicide or they might end up, overdosing on drugs or something like that. And then he managed to get clean through the help of David Bowie. And after that, you could see a turn in his music. It wasn't necessarily happy, but
It was at least not like angry.
Yeah, exactly. You could see that he was in a different frame of mind and moving on in a different direction, and he was still able to create, which is very inspiring.
I really like Nine Inch Nails. They're one of my favorite bands too. We've known each other for a long time, and it might have been you who introduced me to Nine Inch Nails.
Probably.
Could have.
Could have been. You might have heard of them
Who
before.
was I? A young blank slate. I knew nothing of anything, but Nine Inch Nails really, it got me through a lot too, especially, being in the hospital, like you said, is kind of like a healing space, and to be able to relate with music that has like a deeper meaning than just, fuck bitches get money kind of deal. I think there's like a different...
That wet ass pussy?
Yeah, you can vibe more deeply. It helps you, music can be like a catalyst for change and inspire you to be a better human being, or like at least understand your emotions a little better, have some time to like reflect. It's almost meditation in a way, and it can be... And their Nine Inch Nails is a really good example of that. They've got some like very... And even Trent Reznor and his other adventures, like anything he does with was it Atticus Ross?
Yeah, Atticus Ross is
very atmospheric.
Like, what were we watching? We watched The Social Network, where he did the soundtrack for that, which was okay, great, loved it, and you could really tell he has that like signature style. And we were watching Watchmen, the new Watchmen series on HBO, and he did the scoring for that, and it was that. Jordy was like, "Who's this?" And I was like, without looking, I was like, "It's my boy, my boy Trent Reznor for sure."
Yeah, he's managed to branch out, and he really got into scoring films alongside Atticus Ross, a longtime partner of his, and they've done a lot of great work and had a lot of success scoring films, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really fun, and you can see that people kind of like typecast him as this like certain type of like a crazy industrial like dude, and then now he's scoring films for that win Oscars like crazy.
Yeah,
you really get typecast, I think.
One hell of a journey, that's for sure.
Is that something you'd want to do? Like in the future, would you want to be
branch out into any of these other industries?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely inspirations to do other things than just my own project. Scoring video games is something that I'd really enjoy.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What one was really cool? Was the one for Doom?
Yeah, the Doom 2016 soundtrack was huge. But there's definitely been soundtracks in many video games over the years that have been like, they really catch the atmosphere of the game and pull you in. Whereas if the same game was no music behind it, would be kind of dull and bland.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Which one? Was it the Doom one where they got like it was like a choir and like metal screamers that was to come in?
Yeah, like for both of them.
Yeah, like that's rad. Love that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting take on it. Yeah, so those are a lot of the reasons as to why I got into this and where I'm trying to head and hope that things work out. Yes, so again, these are my two best friends, Reggie and Jordy, and we are going to sign off. Once again, I want to throw out a special thank you to my sponsor, Backwater Studios out of Pembroke, Ontario. They're the ones that are allowing me to use their space to be able to produce my music. Awesome.
Nice.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dale.
Yeah, it's been great.
No problem.
Yeah.
All right. Catch you on the flip side.
All right.